This is the 2023 Honda Accord. While brands like Ford and Buick have ditched the midsize sedan and sedans in general, the Accord soldiers on into its 11th generation. While crossovers and SUVs continue to dominate the automotive industry, Honda has still managed to sell around 200,000 Accords every year. So for 2023, they've given it a completely new look, a new powertrain, and a new interior. Under the hood are a pair of 4-cylinder engines. You can get either a 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 192 horsepower. That comes standard on the base EX and LX trim levels. Or you can get a 2-liter 4-cylinder hybrid powertrain that makes 204 horsepower. That engine comes standard on all other trim levels, so the EXL, Sport, Sport L, and Touring. This is the Sport L model, which gets you the hybrid powertrain and upgraded EXL features, along with some sporty design elements like these black 19-inch rims, black spoilers, and black design elements. This one has a sticker for $35,000. Even though this is the sleekest Accord ever made, I at 6'2" can still comfortably sit in the back seats. Headroom is a little tight when I sit upright, but if I sit in a little more comfortable position, I'm absolutely fine. There's loads of leg room, loads of feet room. Okay, driving the new Honda Accord. Now, when I heard that this car maxed out at 204 horsepower, I was a little disappointed, especially when you consider that the last generation, the 10th generation Honda Accord, had almost 50 more horsepower in its top-of-the-line 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine that made 252 horsepower. So hearing that 204 horsepower was the most amount of power you were going to get out of the 11th generation Honda Accord was a little disappointing. But honestly, after I've put over 500 miles on this car in the few days that I've had it already, and I'm actually really impressed with this powertrain. I took this car from Los Angeles to Sonoma County, which is about a 7-hour road trip, and I had 4 people in the car plus all of our luggage. Not only did we average 38 miles per gallon on the interstate, which is pretty good for 4 people and luggage with a hybrid powertrain, because hybrid powertrains are best around town, but I never felt that the car was underpowered. Even though it only has that 204 horsepower, we were still able to pass all of the cars and merge onto the freeway and do everything we needed to do with relative ease, and I never felt like the car was strained to get up and go. I think the electric motor really helps provide that instant torque, and then the 2-liter 4-cylinder can kind of come in and assist where it is needed. And the drive modes of this car really make a big difference. I'm gonna cycle down into eco mode, and in econ is what Honda calls it. In econ mode, you put your foot down and you wait, and then the power comes. It's pretty doggy, it's pretty slow. And in normal mode, it's much of the same. Like, you have to kind of wait to get the power. It's really easy to drive smooth in those modes, and the steering is nice and light, and you can just kind of sit back and cruise. But I really like sport mode. Sport mode is where this car really comes alive. The steering firms up and it becomes really a good weight. It could be a little heavier, but it's still a pretty good weight to kind of chuck this car around corners, and it's quick too. The steering is really nice and direct, and I really like how it feels in sport mode. And what's nice in sport mode is this car actually has regenerative braking that you can only turn on when you're in sport mode. If you pull the downshift paddle 5 times, you can turn it on the most intense regenerative braking. There are essentially 5 different levels you can choose from, and you can almost one pedal drive when you have it in the 5th setting, the most aggressive setting, which is really nice for kind of like aggressive driving in a canyon setting or in a winding road setting, because you can just lift your foot off the gas and the car will slow down pretty aggressively. It won't come to a stop. You will have to apply the brake to come to a stop, but it slows down pretty much as you would need it to, and then you can just get right back on the power, and that helps make up for this car's lack of power, because you can just keep your foot on the gas and press the gas when you need it. In sport mode also, the car definitely hangs higher like revs. It gets going a lot faster. The engine will kind of spool up. It has a CVT, obviously. There's not a regular automatic transmission in this, but the electric motor and the engine seem much peppier in sport mode and ready to provide you power. And I haven't really noticed a decrease in fuel economy with the added performance that sport mode gets you. This car is actually quite nimble. It's not quite as tight as the Civic. The Civic's chassis is really incredible. This isn't quite as tight as that car. It's obviously a larger vehicle, so I wouldn't expect it to be, but you can still have a good time in the Honda Accord, especially with this hybrid powertrain in sport mode. I'm pushing it quite aggressively now down this winding road, and it's performing quite well. Again, it's really nice just to be able to lift up my foot to have the car slow down instead of having to switch over to the brake. That honestly makes this car feel a lot faster than it actually is, because then I can get right on the power right away without having to make that micro movement of my foot. It just helps it feel a little quicker. I'm actually really impressed by the ride of this car too. I thought these 19-inch rims that you get on the Sport L model would kind of dampen the ride quality and mean that it's like you feel the bumps, and you definitely do feel the sharper jolts in the road, but the Accord is actually really composed. Even when we had 4 people and all of our luggage, the ride was still really smooth, and this is not a very smooth road I'm driving on. There's a lot of potholes and different just impacts that you can feel through the car, but the Honda Accord does a great job soaking it up even while I'm driving at these pretty aggressive speeds. The Honda Accord, it remains very composed. So while this doesn't have the engine performance of the 10th generation Accord, and you can't get a manual anymore, you're stuck with the CVT, this car still can be really fun to drive, and you can push it aggressively and get some enjoyment out of it. Now, obviously, there are vehicles with more performance in the segment. You can get a Hyundai Sonata N-Line. You can get the Toyota Camry with a V6 that makes over 300 horsepower. But if you are set on the Accord, you're not really going to be disappointed. Honestly, sport mode really makes this car become a lot more fun to drive and just a lot more responsive, and really, honestly, I'm having fun with the Honda Accord right now. Otherwise, this is a really nice cabin to spend time. I love that you get this 12.3-inch infotainment system on the Accord. It just fills up the dash a lot more than the 9-inch screen does on the CR-V or Civic, and makes you feel like you are getting a nicer vehicle than those cars, because this costs about the same as a CR-V. Obviously, you can't get all-wheel drive and there isn't as much storage, but again, I took this on a road trip with 4 people and all of our luggage, and we and our luggage fit really fine. I think people kind of forget how practical sedans can be, especially a midsize sedan. The trunk is massive on this thing. Honda did a great job really carving out to the very edges of the car all the space they could, so that you can fit as much stuff as you can in here. The seats fold down, so you could take a bike. You might have to take the front tire off, but you could definitely fit a bike. You get a fully digital instrument cluster, which is fine. It reads out your speed, it does your fuel economy, all of that stuff. And then on the 12.3-inch infotainment system, you can do CarPlay nearly full screen. There is a bar on the left that has Honda's native system in it, just shortcuts to take you home or to radio or whatever. But the CarPlay looks great. It's probably 11 inches of the 12.3 inches, so looks really good. I love that the climate controls are separate. I think they're super simple, probably the simplest any car company could have done. Honda did it, probably because some of their customers are older and they needed that, but honestly makes it super easy to adjust while driving. There is a volume knob, which is really nice. They made it really small, almost like they begrudgingly added a volume knob back, but it still is nice to have. I like this continuous air vent you get. The CR-V and the Civic had that. In the Accord, it's a diamond pattern instead of a honeycomb pattern, which feels a little more professional, a little more aggressive, kind of fitting with this car. This is a more mature vehicle than the Civic. And the seats are super comfortable. Again, when on a 7-hour road trip, I wish they had a little more lumbar than they do, especially the passenger seat. The passenger doesn't have adjustable lumbar, the driver does. But both the passenger and the front passenger and the driver's seat are automatic in this Sport L. So this isn't the top of the line. There is the Touring above it, and I believe the Touring gets an upgraded Bose sound system. The speakers on this one, I don't think they have a label. They're just kind of Honda's speakers. They're not amazing. They're kind of heavy on the mid and upper range. I wanted a little more bass, and I turned up the bass and it was okay then, but I think the upgraded speakers would be nice, but I think you can only get those on the Touring. But this car is $35,000. The last car I had, 2 cars ago, no, the last car I had, they all blur together, was a Ford Bronco Sport Heritage. Now, that car was more expensive because it was the Sport Heritage and it had that heritage design elements. It was also more expensive because it's based on the Badlands and has a lot of off-road capability, but that car was $46,000. It didn't have nearly the rear seat room that this car had. It doesn't have nearly as nice tech. It's not nearly as good to drive on the road as this vehicle. Yes, it has all-wheel drive. Yes, it has like a locking differential and all of that off-road chops, but honestly, most people are not going to be using that. And if you live in a climate where you can get away with front-wheel drive and put on snow tires even in the winter, if you do live in a wintry climate, this is just such a better car. It's better engineered, better to drive, more efficient, better to look at in my opinion, even with that heritage design element. Like, I just think you're getting a lot of vehicle for $35,000, and people just kind of sleep on mid-size sedans now because everyone is in this crossover SUV craze. But these are amazing cars, and I'm having a blast with this Honda Accord. It's a great all-around vehicle. You can have fun with it. It is still efficient, and I don't know, I really like it. So that's the 2023 Honda Accord. While it doesn't have all-wheel drive, it has, in my opinion, better looks, better technology, and better efficiency than a Honda CR-V, making it the better choice of the two, in my opinion. I absolutely love this car, and I'm super happy that Honda has continued to offer a midsize sedan. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.